It's Vlogmas Day 17 and it's time to call myself out a little bit about series that I am in the middle of and maybe should not be in the middle of. Hi everyone, my name's Chloe, welcome back to my channel, thank you for being here today. Today's video is a Vlogmas video. I am posting a new video every day in December up to and including Christmas Day. We're doing a mixture of bookish and theatrical content. We're on the bookish side today and I'm going to be talking about all the series that I have made some sort of progress with in 2022. And I will say that there are some series that I could have made progress with in 2022 that I have not read anything from, and those are not going to be included in this list because I do not have an easy way of figuring out which series there were releases from that I have not actually continued all this year. So I thought instead I would just focus on the ones that I have made some sort of progress on. That's not to say that I'm actually up to date with a lot of these, because just because I've made progress on it doesn't mean I'm where I should be. So I broke this up into a few different groups. We're going to start off with the series I've completed this year. We're going to start off with the ones where I look all accomplished, and then we're going to slowly move towards the ones where I don't later on in the video. So for these, it is a mixture of ones where I have read the entire series this year or ones where I have just finished the series this year. These are all ones where the final book in the series has been published and I have read it, because there are some others where I'm sort of up to date but there are still more releases to come. So I've written these down in kind of order of when I read them as well, and this video isn't really about like reviews of the series or anything like that, but I will give you like some very brief thoughts about all of them because I'm me and I like to ramble. So we're going to start off with the first series that I read this year, which was one that I read in its entirety. That was the Greenbone Saga. I had a fantastic time at the beginning of the year binge reading this. I say I had a fantastic time. I read the entire thing while I was in quarantine because I had COVID. But you know, it was a good thing to pass the time while I had COVID. It was a 5-star series. There is a reason why I read it all in one go. I just had a great time reading it. Then actually I said that I'd put these in order. This one I did just because like it was the next one I saw I made progress on the series, but I didn't actually finish it till much later in the year. It is The Realm of the Eldlings by Robin Hobb. At the beginning of the year I was still on the Live Ship Traders, which is the second series in The Realm of the Eldlings. There are 5 like sort of individual series within this big saga. So you had the Farseer trilogy, which I read last year, Live Ship Traders, the Tawny Man trilogy, the Rainwild Chronicles, and the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, and those last 4 are the ones that I read this year. So there's 16 books in the series as a whole, and I think I read 12 of them this year, which is pretty impressive. And there were like highs and lows within this series. The Rainwild Chronicles in particular was a lower point, but I adore this series with my whole heart. Like the last book broke me in so many ways, and you are going to hear me talk about that last book in another video that will be coming up next week, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but I'm very, very happy that I have now finished The Realm of the Eldlings, although I kind of wish that there was more because I just want to read more from that world. Next up, I finished the Daevabad trilogy. I read the first 2 last year and I finished the trilogy this year. The first 2 I gave 4 stars to, the last one I gave 5 stars to. It was the ending to that series that I really, really wanted. I know there has been something else released within this world now. I think it's like a short story collection. I don't actually own it yet because I'm waiting for the paperback, but I'm not including that because the actual main trilogy is finished and I completed it. Go me. Then we have 2 series by the same author duo, so Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Got the Illuminae files. I read all 3 of them plus the novella Memento pretty much all in one go, and then I also finished reading the Aurora cycle by reading Aurora's End. I enjoyed all of these books. I'm particularly glad that I gave the Illuminae cycle another chance because I really, really enjoyed that series, and I felt like Aurora's End was a really satisfying conclusion to that trilogy as well. Then we had the Montague siblings, which is a series by Mackenzie Lee. It was an author that I don't particularly want to promote. I won't go into the reasons why here, but if you want to look into it, feel free. I'd read the first 2 in the series, but I decided that because there was just so long left I would finish it, but I have since on hold the series, not just because I don't want to support the author, but also it was just like a bit of an unsatisfying conclusion. Like it didn't feel like it was necessary. They're all companion books that all follow different siblings, and this one's set quite a while after, and it's with a sibling that you didn't know that much in the first 2 because they were a baby when the other 2 ended up sort of separating from their parents. So whilst it did offer some conclusions to the story, it just felt very unnecessary. We then have got The Roommate and the Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Dan, and when I looked on Goodreads it's just being called like the Roommate series, but they are also companion books. I don't feel like there's going to be another one because I don't know what character it would be based on. I preferred The Roommate as a whole, but I like the characters more in the Intimacy Experiment. I had a good time reading both of them. They're both like solid 4-star reads, and yeah, it's another series that I read this year. I also finished These Violent Delights by reading Our Violent Ends. Again, I will say I know there has been like a spin-off series to this that has now been published, but it is its own series, so I'm still going to call it a win that I finished reading Our Violent Ends. Again, one that I felt like parts of it were kind of unnecessary. All of the fantasy monster stuff didn't feel like it was needed, but I was there for the romance and the drama and the angst. It was a good time. I feel like all of these last ones I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to say they were a bit unnecessary, because once again, we have The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. So actually the sequel was called The Monarchs, which is the concluding part of the duology. And I just don't understand why we needed to have a second book. It was fine, but like it really wasn't needed. We could have just left it at one. But either way, I read it, so it's a complete series. And then finally we have Song of Storms and Silence, which was the concluding part of the duology, which started with A Songs of Wraith and Ruin. I struggled a lot to say those titles. Again, like the second book just felt like unnecessary in a way, because while you needed some stuff for the storyline to still tie up, like it was very much left in a place where things were open at the end of the first one, there was a large section of this book where kind of nothing was happening because there wasn't really enough of the story to flesh out a full book. It felt like we could have just cut some stuff out of the first one and made this as one whole story instead, or just added some more drama, so it felt like we weren't just waiting around for a lot of the second book. But anyway, I finished it. That's the important part. So we're going to carry on with ones where I'm doing well. We're going to talk about ones where I've continued the series and I am now up to date with them, but there are still more to come out, so we can't call it a completed series yet. There's only 2 of these though, and then we're going to get on to some negatives. We do come back to some more positives later, so it's fine. The first one of these is that I read The First Die at the End this year, which is the prequel to They Both Die at the End. There is going to be another book within the Deathcast universe coming out. We don't know exactly when it's set yet, unless I missed an announcement, but I don't think I have. So for now, I'm up to date, but we'll watch this space and there will be another one coming out. And then I read The Ballad of Never After this year as well, which is the sequel to Once Upon a Broken Heart. We do have the title for the third one, but I cannot remember it off the top of my head. It's literally just been announced this week. It's A Curse of Something, but that one comes out in September next year. With these, I've been reading them like pretty much on release dates, so I'm fine. I think I will be fine with reading the third one as well, because to be honest, after that cliffhanger, I need the third one like immediately. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start calling myself out now. So we're going to talk about ones where I continued the series, but I am behind because there are other books that are already out and I still need to read those ones. So the first one is going to be Girls of Paper and Fire. So I read the second book this year, which was Girls of... See, Storm and Silence again. It feels like it's the same title for everything, but let me just check. Girls of Storm and Shadow. It was close. I read that one this year, and then the third one I really can't remember the name of. But anyway, that one's come out now. I didn't love the second one too much, so I've been putting off completing the series, which is a bit ridiculous, because if I complete it, either I'll love the ending, or I'll be able to go, actually, no, I don't want to keep these on my shelf and unhaul them. So maybe that's something that I should look at doing early 2023. But then I've got a series that I've actually read a few from this year, and I don't think I'm that far behind now. I honestly would not be able to tell you what number I'm actually up to, but it's a Wayward Children series. I want to say I've read 5 of them at this point, but I'm not in any rush to sort of make sure I'm up to date with them, because I feel like the good ones just sort of have on my TBR if I just want like a short quick read, particularly for readathons. So I'm not in any rush to sort of like catch up with the series, because I'm quite happy just knowing they're there when I need them. And then the next one, I've only recently caught up on it and bought the final book in the series, so that's the reason why I'm behind, and it will be rectified very, very soon. It is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. I read The Extraordinaries a few years ago now when it first came out, had Flashfire for a while, finally read it in November, have now purchased Heatwave, and I will be reading that soon because I do want to complete that trilogy. Okay, we're going to go back to positives now. We're going to do series that I started reading this year and I am up to date on. Now, a lot of these are obviously ones where there's only the first book in the series out, but still, like, we're gonna take the positives where I can get them. So the first one is Monk and Robot by Becky Chambers. This is Sam for the Wild Bill and Prayer for the Crown Shy. I don't know if there's going to be more in this series. I've seen some places say it's a duology, I've seen some places say it's a series, and put it on this part because I'm living in hope that it will be a series, because I really loved it. So fingers crossed we get more from this series. Right now I've read the 2 that are out. We then have got the Atlas series by Olivia Blake. So I've read the Atlas 6 and I've read the Atlas Paradox. I read both of those this year. We then have got, we will have a final part in that series, the Atlas something or other, I don't know what it's called yet. And they will be coming out. Hopefully I will prefer it to the second book, because the second book was a little bit of a letdown for me. But I have read it and I am up to date with it. And now we've got the first one where there's only 1 book out, and that's why I'm up to date. But the second one is one of my more anticipated books of next year. That is Little Feast by Margaret Owen. Painted Devils is out next year. I do plan on picking it up fairly quickly. I'm assuming that Illumicrate are going to do a matching edition, and I will be getting that one and then reading it as soon as possible. We then have got the Bright Falls series by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a series with Delilah Green Doesn't Care and Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. There is going to be a 3rd book coming out, which is about their other friend called Iris. They're all sapphic romance books. I've loved both of them so far. I will be reading the Iris one as soon as it comes out. I'm up to date at the minute and doing well. I also read The Double Trouble Society by Carrie Hope Fletcher this year. It is the start of a middle grade series. I have already pre-ordered the second one, so again, have high hopes that I will actually continue on with that series. Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. There have been 3 volumes that have been physically published so far. I know obviously there are more available if you read the webcomic, but I'm waiting for the physically published versions, particularly because there's been changes to them. And so far I've read all 3 that have come out, and generally when I get these I read them as soon as I get them. So again, think I should be able to keep up with this one, no problem. I also read Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson this year. I have not pre-ordered the second one to this one yet because I'm waiting for Fairy Loot to announce their edition, but I do have plans to get it as soon as they announce their edition. And then the last new series that I've started and I am up to date on is The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. Again, it is one where there is only 1 book out so far. We don't have any information on the sequel that I know of at the minute, but I gave the first one 5 stars, so as soon as I have information on the second one, I will look at ways to acquire it. Okay, so back to more negative things. These are series that I've started, but I'm not up to date with. Either some of them it's just that they were longer series and I haven't been able to finish them yet. Some of them it is ones where I started them and then the sequels come out this year and I haven't read it yet. So the first one is the Buffy reboot comics, which I started earlier on this year, and I've only read 1 of them so far. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be carrying on with this series, to be honest, but I have got the first volume of the Angel one as well, so I'm going to keep it on like this section of the video at the minute because I'm trying to convince myself that I will read them. We then have got the Stormcrow, which is one that Jem picked for me on TBR Mash. I enjoyed the first one. I do think if I'm going to carry on with the series, I need to do it sooner rather than later because I worried that I will just forget about this series and then not continue it. But for now, I've kept it on this one because I'm hopeful that I will finish it. I think it's only a duology, so it should be fairly easy to do. Another one that Jem picked for me is a Firefly sort of spin-off book series. I've read the first one, I had the second one to read. I've just not felt inclined to pick it up yet, but I'm sure I will at some point. And then another one that Jem got me to read is Raven Cycle. Again, I've only read the first one so far. I'm not entirely sure why I haven't read any of the others because I really, really enjoyed the first one, but I will make it a priority to read the second one soon because Fairy Loot has just announced a pretty set of them, and I feel like I should have read like at least half of the series before I decide to buy that set. We then have got Nevermore, the Morrigan Crow series by Jessica Townsend. I've read the first 2 in the series. I'm kind of putting off the third one a little bit because the 4th book release keeps getting pushed back and it's going out in hardback first and I had the paperback, so I'm going to have to wait even longer anyway. So I might read Hollowpox as Silverborn comes out so that then I've only got the wait for the paperback for Silverborn. It makes that wait feel less ridiculous. I then got the Bridgerton series, which is one that like is a little bit shameful because I bought all 8 books in the Pretty Illumicrate editions and I've only read the first one so far, but I will read them. I will. I'm going to keep telling myself I will, and then it will happen. We then have got We Hunt the Flame, which is one that Meg picked for me to read, and I only read it in October, I think, or it might have even been November, but I was thumping at the time as well, so that's why I didn't immediately reach for the sequel. But it is on my radar to read. I do need to buy it first, so that is a thought. I should probably look into that at some point soon. Then I've got the Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Schusterman. I've read the first one this year. Again, I read it in like September, October time, which was in the middle of a slump. So whilst I really enjoyed the first one, I didn't want to go straight into the second one because I felt like that might have sort of set me back with my reading, but it is a priority to read towards the beginning of next year. Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I've read Spoiler Alert, I've read All the Fields. Shipwrecked only came out in the last month and it's just not been on my TBR yet, so I'm not, so that's the one that I'm not like down on myself about not reading. I've had very limited time to read it so far. And then we have Viper by Bex Hogan, which I only read in November, so again, not down on myself for that, but technically it needs to be in this section. The next section is negative in one way, but not negative on me, because I'm not actually behind on these. I'm just not going to carry on the series. These are the series that I've decided I'm going to DNF after. Actually, all of these ones where I've just read one book and gone, actually no, I do not need to carry on with that series. But these are ones where I've just sort of said, actually, I'm not going to put myself through having to try and finish them when I'm clearly not enjoying them, which I think is growth, because previously I would force myself to read the sequel when I probably shouldn't have done. So the first one of this is Foundry Side. This is one that got picked by Ashley from Ashley's Media Addiction on my TBR Match game, and sadly it just wasn't a book I enjoyed. I can't even remember what I disliked about it at this point. I just remember not having a great time reading it, and I have no inclination to pick up any more in the series, so this is the DNF. We then have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, which I know a lot of people really, really love this series, but I'm just not a massive fan of Tessa Bailey's writing style. I've read 2 books by her now, and I've had similar issues in both of them, so I just made the decision to not pick up any more Tessa Bailey, and I will not be carrying on with this series. In a similar way, we've got the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas. I read House of Earth and Blood because it came up on TBR Mash. Liv picked it for me. I'd read Sarah J Maas before, but I'd not read any of her like actual books in a way. Like, I'd read a Catwoman book that she'd done for DC, and I knew I didn't like her writing style, but I was told that it was potentially going to be different in these, and it was, but just not different in the way that I needed it to be different. The stuff that was irritating me was still there, and then there was other stuff that was irritating me in this series as well. And yeah, I will not be continuing that series because those are chunky books and I'm not going to put myself through that if I don't have to. So that series is definitely a DNF for me. Is anyone surprised? But I feel like this looks really bad now because both of Liv's picks came up in the same month, and then they're both series I'm not carrying on with. I'm very sorry, Liv. I'm glad that you love these books, but they're just not for me. I will not be carrying on with the Crave series by Tracy Wolff either. This one I actually didn't hate, and originally I did think I was going to carry on with the series, but I honestly just have had like no inclination to pick it up since, and I can't even remember who any of the characters are in it, and I'm just like, clearly this is not a series that I need to continue. I'm just going to leave it at the one book. I still had an okay time reading it, but I'm just not going to carry on with the series. We then have got into The Crooked Place by Alexandra Christo, which I read for the podcast with Jem and Lisa, and I liked a book by this author before, but sadly this series was a bit lackluster, and again it's one where I just don't really remember the characters or like any of the specifics of the story, so I'm just going to kind of leave it where I left it and just be like, I don't really need to know the ending of this, thank you. And then the last book is a very, very new addition to this list because I read it this week. It is the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. So I read Wolfsong this week. Then there was something in it that just made me feel very uncomfortable throughout the entire book. I did consider DNFing it at one point, but I was interested enough in the rest of the storyline to kind of power through and see how it went. Sadly, I could never sort of stop feeling uncomfortable at the one particular thing that I'm not going to say for spoilers, and it does mean that I will be DNFing this series, even though I know the rest of the series, like they all focus on different characters, so the thing that I was uncomfortable with shouldn't be a major plot point in any of the others, but it's just kind of soured the entire series for me now, so I'm going to give up on it and unfortunately have to get rid of my Pretty Waterstones edition. And then we have two more series to talk about, and these ones that I'm unsure whether or not I'm going to be continuing. So this one is Witches of Thistle Grove, which is by Lana Harper, and this one started with Payback's a Witch. I did not realise this was going to be a series when I first read it, and I kind of enjoyed this book, but it wasn't something that I would like necessarily want to reread again, and I'm not sure if I need more from this world. I think I gave it a 3-star. It was very middle of the road. I may pick up the sequel if I find it cheap in the works again, because that's how I got the first one, but it's not one that I'm like desperate to continue the series with right now, which is why I'm kind of leaving it on the unsure section. And then the other one for this is actually Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I intended to continue the series when I first finished reading it. I think I gave it a 4-star. But I just sort of found the pacing off in this book. I found the characters to be a little bit underdeveloped. I felt like I knew the main character a lot, but I didn't really know anybody else in the series at all. And I just don't know if there's enough there to make me want to continue reading that series. But then I keep seeing tweets about Bloodmarked, and it's making me want to continue it. So that's why I'm leaving it on unsure at the minute. Right, so that is all the series that I made some sort of progress on this year, whether I am up to date, completed, or very behind. And as I said, I know there are more that I started in previous years and have made no progress on this year, but we'll not call myself out that much, shall we? But that is everything. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down below. Let me know if you've been making progress on series this year, or if you are very, very behind as well. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video. Bye.